Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. Today's topic is Optimizing the Corporate Governance Board's Role in Healthcare Compliance and Ethics, and will be presented by Rory Snell. Just a few quick notes. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available on CITI program's website. This webinar is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to provide legal advice or legal guidance. In addition, the views expressed are solely those of the presenters within the webinar. Now, let me tell you about today's presenter. Rory is the first chairman of the board, co-founder, and former CEO of the Healthcare Compliance Association and Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics. He has authored 2 books, The Accidental Compliance Professional and Integrity Works. Rory has an MA in Health and Human Services Administration. He has served on Youth Athletics and UVA Physicians Group boards. And now I'm going to pass the mic to you, Roy. I'm going to share the learning objectives for today. The first is to understand compliance and ethics activities the board is expected to accomplish. Second is sharing ideas together for board training, the role of the compliance committee, compliance officer selection, executive session do's and don'ts, and compliance program evaluation. The third is a high-level overview of what the government enforcement community is looking for from the board when they investigate. And finally, knowledge of how the board can facilitate the development of an ethical culture.
The reason why our profession was created 20, 30 years ago and it's been so successful, is because those who came before us did not necessarily have the authority to finish. The board should know an accurate definition of a compliance program, should support the compliance program through every channel that they can. And another issue that we're going to talk about quite a bit today is having compliance expertise on the board. And that is usually defined quite poorly, and it needs to be defined better. What an executive session is, the compliance officer shows up to the board meeting, and the board chair excuses everybody out of the room except for the board members. And then the board chair says to the compliance officer, is the CEO or anybody else for that matter interfering with the implementation of your compliance program? So if I was involved in any way with any element of a compliance program, education, auditing, monitoring, investigations, I would say to whoever was leading is that let's not forget all the elements. Here's my piece. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure that we meet these expectations.
Speaking of subscribing, I would like to also invite you to subscribe to our podcasts On Campus with CITI program, On Tech Ethics, and On Research. Please also consider subscribing to our weekly newsletter. I'd like to thank Roy again for today's presentation. I would also like to thank our audience members for joining us today and for their questions. I invite you to review our content offerings regularly, as we are continually adding new courses and webinars in various areas of research, ethics, compliance, and professional development throughout the year. In particular, you may also be interested in new healthcare content, including the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, HIPAA, and fraud and abuse. That concludes today's webinar. Have a great day.